everybody. Today I would like to talk about the ultimate SRE tool, which is, from my point of view, Canary Monitoring. I would like to briefly discuss it, how you can use it in your day-to-day work, and how it can benefit of the production system that you are responsible for. But firstly, let me introduce myself a little bit. So as you see on the pictures, I'm amateur triathlon passionate, and this is in fact a good picture that describes at the same time what SRE is about. So as you might know, the abbreviation is Site Reliability Engineer, but in fact it is combining the multiple skills. Like in the triathlon, you need to swim, then bike, and then run, like all together. And in the SRE work, you need to combine the skills of the developer, so being able to program and to make some code, operation guy, so being able to restart or operate the production systems or the deployments or Kubernetes or AWS, whatever is the tools that you have. And the last one might be a little bit tricky, but it also combines the skills of running the project, being a project manager or a product manager, depending how do you see it. So out of those three, as in the triathlon, it does not mean that you can be one out of three and you can pick like which one is for you. You need to combine them all together at the same time, one after the other, sometimes in different order. So that's make work of SRE exciting and tricky at the same time. But today I would like to talk about the one tool that you can use, and that should be easy to implement and very beneficial, which I would like to also describe you. So we will quickly go with, like, first of all, the use case that you need to pick for the Canary Monitoring. Then how do you build this monitoring tool? And then quickly we will describe the challenges that you might encounter and the benefits that like we are looking for, like building any tool that is used in our day-to-day work. So first, let's start with this beautiful picture of the canary bird and explaining why the Canary Monitoring is called like that. So in old days, the miners, they were taking canary bird with them down to the mine in order to detect the poison gas that might be harmful for them. And the canary bird was used as a detection equipment or animal, and they didn't wait, in fact, until the canary died, but they only wait until it stopped singing. That was the mark that something poison is inside. And exactly the same concept is used in the Canary Monitoring. So that is the place, the tool that we as SRE have with us in production to be able to detect that something wrong is happening with our system. And as exactly in the mine, the canary will not detect which kind of poison gas it was. Like in the production, we will not know what is exactly happening, but we know that it's happening and that we need to react. To be able to talk about the Canary Monitoring, I need to first introduce you to the use case, that the concept of the use case in the Canary Monitoring. So you know like what to look for, and in fact the half of the Canary Monitoring is to pick the right use case for the job. So you need to think your customer eyes. That's the first place, and then to pick the one that is making the most value for your company or your product. I will describe the basic use case on the example of e-commerce website, so that you are familiar with, most of you are familiar with the e-commerce website, so it should be easy for working out this example. So the first place that will not, your monitoring need to detect is when the landing page of the e-commerce website is not working. And if it is the case, you already know that that's the very bad situation for your system. And in fact, you can think about the monitoring also from the perspective when your boss will call you, so he's not SRE, or if your boss is SRE, then your boss of the boss, like CEO, will call you when something happened on your system. So if the landing page of the e-commerce is not working, he will call you for sure, because that's the place that everybody is visiting for the first time when getting here. So, and then you can think about this example of important situation from the business point of view. So on the e-commerce website, it's not enough to just see the first page. You need to be able to browse through categories. So you need to follow the path that the customer is following when you implement this monitoring. So it needs to detect the actual problem of the system, that somebody cannot achieve the goal of aim of the customer journey here. So there's a browse of the categories. Then you need to be able to look into some products. So here I will also try to see that, for example, image is loading on this page when I will implement this use case, or which is also important, that the button itself with that buy is working from user point of view, so through the browser, not through some just HTTP request to the website. And then at the very last moment, like shopping cart, and then how the checkout will go on in this monitoring. So that's the first, let's say, use case, that the most important that I see on the e-commerce website. And on your system, you need to think about that on your own. If you do it via API, then the question will be, okay, what is the customer most important journey through your API, and how you can achieve the same on the monitoring. So here you are doing a few steps. In each step, you execute some customer tasks, and at the end, you are checking that it succeeded or not. And based on that, you will issue the alarm to the system that something is wrong. So there are many possible use cases. There are a lot of different, let's say, nuances around them, but the principles are the same, so that needs to be important from business point of view. So your boss will call you when the customers cannot check out the order, then it needs to be simple, and you cannot pick like many of them at the same time. But and if you have the first, let's say, use case, then the question will be how to build it into the working software. So, and do it right at the same time. So first thing is that you need to think about it from a reliability point of view, and monitoring needs to be at least as reliable as your system that you are checking. So you need to either provide the tools on your own, or you need to base on the partners that they have reliability for the whole system, for the monitoring and what they provide. And that's the stack that we have in IDEMIA. So we are based on AWS Lambda and CloudWatch, but also we are working with PagerDuty to have the alarms of when the system is unavailable, or the phone that will call us when something bad happens. And that is the part of the monitoring chain that is really important, because we don't want to have any failures in detecting the problems of the production just because like something will not work with the monitoring. So the reliability is very important. The second part is that monitoring needs to be external to your own application servers infrastructure. So you will monitor exactly in the same way as the customers enters your system. That is, you are detecting also the problems with firewalls or NAT or network or ISP and everything inside. From my experience point of view, The problems are not like picking one or the other part of the system, they're just randomly distributed. So there is like firewalls problems they have seen, like internet problems and so on, and application problems as well. It's not that only we have a problems with applications. So being outside will give you the possibility to detect the same exact things in the same exact way than the customers are visiting your website. So you will be sure that it's working or not. Then, like how you need to build it, just remember that this is the professional code, so you need to write it properly with architectures. Don't make any shortcut here. It's not a hobby project, so just make sure that you have the architecture layers, you build your client API properly, you build the use cases around them. If you have multiple use cases, then you will like mix parts of the system so you can reuse it. And at the same time, your application will evolve, and then your monitoring needs to evolve together with your application, so you don't want to be stuck with some spaghetti code or any mess around just your Canary Monitoring. Yes, then you need to redesign it from scratch. So just make sure that you have the proper organization from the beginning. And to just sum up these let's say two first parts, so we discussed why you need to build the Canary Monitoring. So if you think about your customers, so if there is some main use case that is not working, you want to know about it, so you want this use case to be put into the monitoring at the first place. Then your boss can advise you which are the most important use cases for the customers and the system that we are building. Pick only few of them, so don't try to build every possible scenario, just have the 1, 2, 3 maybe use cases, and then if you see that later you can extend, but keep it simple. And I didn't discuss it much in my previous parts, but you need to consider how do you clean after your test. So this test will be executed multiple times, like every let's say few minutes, but how do you clean that you will not disturb the other part of the work. But you can read about it in some articles around the internet, so that should not be an issue, I think, yourself. So that's for the why and how. Just quickly, so the reliability, be sure that you have reliability monitoring of your system. You need to be external, outside, exactly at the same place as the customers. Remember about the architecture. Maybe consider using Python to write those scripts if you need to have the programming language, because it's simple. It gives you multiple benefits, and you don't need to. This is not a production code, and you don't need to like be afraid of Python or anything that will help you here. And maybe the last is that you need to make sure that you have the same development practices that you have inside your company, so to be able to like extend this and work this in the future. Quickly, that's not the Canary Monitoring. I'm great enthusiast of Canary Monitoring, but it's not the only monitoring that you should have, and you need to be aware of the challenges. So the first challenge of the Canary Monitoring is that it's detecting a failure of the system only after it happens. So your whole scenario is outside. You cannot check that the database will crash in the moment. It needs to go through all the use case, and then only after it will detect that something is not working, it will be able to alert you on that. You cannot run Canary Monitoring like constantly. You need to have some pause, because this will bring load to your system. So you can, for example, on this e-commerce website, maybe you can run the scenario with checkout every 5 minutes, but you cannot run it every 1 second, because then, like if it is small, then it will increase the load of your system heavily. And then if you run it only 5 minutes, it will detect the failure in the worst scenario after these 5 minutes. And then the single detection might not be good idea to alert with critical level with the PagerDuty, because the phone will ring of some on-call engineer, and maybe the on-call engineer, you don't want to be waken up in the middle of the night just because one scenario failed and it was an accident or just some random thing. You can check it later during the day. So you will add some more probes, and only after 2 failures or 3 failures you will be you want to be alerted with the phone. And then it can give you like maybe 10, maybe 15 minutes, or even sometimes with some scenarios that are not super heavy use, half an hour. And you can think here, okay, maybe it's too much for my system should be always on, yes? But at the same time, the one discussion that I often have is that when there's a problem or a downtime of your system, how much time it took first to realize, if you don't have a canary monitoring, how much time it took to realize that you have a problem, and second, how much time it took to recover from the problem. And if that's not the automatic recovery, and the human needs to react, engineers need to log into the system. Sometimes you need to network engineers at the same time. It will take you some time, and it will be much higher amount than these 15 minutes. So, of course, we want to have this as short as possible, but we can afford to have this time before we detect. That is possible, but again, it depends of your business and of your application. Here you can, on the graph below, you can see some mitigation strategy that you can use. So not only to record if this was success or failure, but you can also record the time that it takes on each step. And by the time change, you will be also be able to detect there's some hidden problems of your application that might arise and then later cause a downtime of the whole system. And if you monitor both the time and the status, so you will be able to detect some potential problem in the future before it happens. So it is possible to mitigate it. But in general, you need to remember that canary monitoring detects a failure after the failure happens. So to not only give you the challenges, but also some benefits of that. So the first one is that the benefits, the canary monitoring give you the ground truth of the system state. So whenever there's an outage, you will know how much it takes, when it was recovered, and which use cases were impacted. That's a good thing for you, for sure, but it's like there are some people who does not like it, because the truth is sometimes difficult to get to bear. It will also give you the possibility to run the monitoring from CLI, so I can log into my laptop, I use the terminal and run the script, and immediately know the state of the system that it is right now. I can do it outside without VPN in the middle of the night because it is external, so I don't need to log in, go to work, and anything like that, because I'm just on the same side of the customer, but the use case is fully automated. And the last benefit is the performance. So you can, if you note down the time of each step, you will also get the performance monitoring for free here. So you will be able, if there's some difference between one application version to the other, you will be able to get this information back to the product and say, okay, guys, why the new version is 2 times slower than the previous one, and they might have some explanation to that, or they will have to fix a bug in the application. So that's very useful and handy. There are more benefits, of course, and I encourage you to look into all of them, or read about them, or listen to some talks about that. So key takeaway is that canary monitoring is easy to implement. So it's just a basic use case. The use case of your customers should not be difficult. That is Swiss Army knife for your work. So you can see here that you can use the same thing for the monitoring, CLI, performance, and many more. And I also think that with the effort that you need to put into the building the monitoring, it gives you the best value for money on this place. So that's I'm a big fan of that monitoring, this kind of monitoring, and of course it's not the only one, but that's definitely the one that is most worth looking into when you have the system. And if you don't have this monitoring in place, I really encourage you to build it. Yeah, so that's the only session. I have one maybe question they frequently get. So when there's no test account in production, what can we do? So you have some system that you don't have a login or anything like that. So the strategy that you can take is that processing of you need to check basically that the processing happens and it's happening correctly. You don't have to check that the result is positive or negative. So you can think about that as a result of the transaction can be both positive and negative. So maybe you don't have the money on the account, and then if you don't have the money on the account, then it means the system processes this transaction and check that how much money you have. So database is working, your system mainly is working as well. So this is a kind of hint that you can think about Canary monitoring not only from positive scenarios but also negative scenarios. Just make sure that you are checking the parts of the system that you want to be checked. That was it for this session. So thank you very much and have a nice conference.